And it is such a pleasure to have Joe Ryan with us today. Joe got his PhD back in 2004 and has been at Clemson University since 2005, and since 2007 he has directed the Project LIFE, and he's going to be telling us a little bit about that today. One thing I've noticed having Joe here, there has been lots of laughter around the building. I don't know what that's all about, but that's it's great to have you here. We had a great conversation this morning. Joe described his doctoral training as indentured servitude, but he loved every minute of it. I forgot to say that earlier.
Ron's still trying to call me back and say it's not done yet. I don't understand that.
He did. He did stress that point. He loved every minute of it. And so he's been doing some great work since he left us. So it's a great way to finish up with our outstanding alumni for special education, Dr. Joe Ryan.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It's great to be here again, to see friendly faces and everything again. Again, Joe Ryan. I was the founder and the executive director of Clemson LIFE. And LIFE is learning is for everyone. It's a post-secondary education program for young adults with intellectual disabilities. And so what we're going to talk about today, going a little fast, is a little brief program overview of what it is. We're going to talk about the curriculum and employment. Employment is our main goal there, to get these kids employed, and also for independent living based on their abilities. Some we realize will never be independent living based on the functioning levels, but others we can achieve that. We're also going to talk about the volunteers and mentors, which really help this program run. We have 500 student volunteers from Clemson University. We are the largest student organization on the campus, okay? So we have tremendous buy-in and support from our student body. We'll talk about our outcomes, which we are, without doubt, one of the most successful programs in the United States, hands down. And we're going to talk about philosophical differences there. I differ from most of the other programs. We'll touch upon that one. But my outcomes are a heck of a lot stronger than theirs are. Research initiatives, we'll touch upon that one there. The beauty of this program is I've had the opportunity to work with every college essentially in Clemson University, and I keep expanding that. From international, the automotive research, Center for Automotive Research, to nutrition science, to computer science, because to make these lives better, more successful is we really have to reach out. Being a special educator is just not going to resolve all the issues that face the challenges of our young population here, and we'll talk about that. And then the long-term goals of the program itself there. Okay, sometimes it's too sensitive, sometimes it's not sensitive enough here. So the program itself started as a 2-year program. Okay, it's essentially what started funded by National Down Syndrome Society. Got funded for about $155,000 to start this program. Work on employment skills, independent living, social skills. If you look at our typical intake student when they come to us between 18 and 26, if I ask my special ed teachers or anything else, socially, where would you put them at? Almost everyone would say middle school, socially level. They're pulling on each other's backpacks. If they like each other, what do? They pull the girl's hair or whatever else. Everything essentially is not your typical college-age student. We've seen huge advances in that. What we address is functional academics, with our goal being cognitive employment and independent living. That is our functional goal. They have a lot of, we build on the social skills, but our primarily is the outcomes that I'm measuring is, can we get these kids employed and can we get independent living? We've started essentially with a small cohort, 4 or 5 students when we first started in 2008. We're going up this fall, we'll have 29 students. The goal long term is by 2020 to have 40 students. That'll be my capacity for the program there. The average size of the program across the United States is 12. So we're already one of the largest programs out there, okay? We will be, the ones that are over 40, there's only a handful. Most of those are in large cities that deal with day population, so it's not a residential. So basically, in the DC area, George Mason, where the kids just come for several hours a day and leave. So they're not have a residential component of that. We're capping it at 12. We created basically, the first one was a basic program, but what happened was we had a lot of students that really did not reach their full capability. And so after 2 years, we go, Joey's almost ready to live independently, but we're running out of time here, in other words, to do this. So how do we do this? So I advanced it to a 3-year program, and good to see you again, sir. Good to see you. And then eventually advanced it to, we still saw growth, so I created 2 programs, a basic program and then an advanced program for the things. What happens is the first 2 years you live on campus. We have an independent living assistant, think of like an RA on steroids living with them. And then the second component is if you demonstrate that you can live independently safely, we move you off campus in departments in the local community where you don't have an independent living assistant, but we monitor you on a regular basis there to make sure that you're doing all your chores, your shopping, your cleaning, and everything else in the thing. But if you cannot, if you still reach for things in the oven during cooking class without oven mitts or whatever else, if you still leave the stove on, you're not ready to be independent. So we'll at that point go, our goal then is to teach you as many skills as we can for cooking, cleaning, and everything else, but really the focus is going to be employment for him or her. Okay, again, this is over, the goal is for 40 students. We grew basically incrementally. The reason that I grew it incrementally is two things. I wanted to see where the gaps were, where I need to hire new personnel. Is it a new teacher that I need, or is it a new job coach? Or is it because we grew so much on the volunteer basis, I have a full-time person just on a volunteer coordinator, okay, for those type of positions there. So identify where the gaps are and where the friction points are. One of the things that we found out is because the social limitations on that is I had to bring in mental health counseling. Because we have every issue that your traditional Nebraska student has here from 18 to 22 exacerbated by the cognitive deficiencies that the individuals have. So whether it be, we have physical abuse going on, sexual abuse, every issue that you deal with across the campus, we will deal with. And my special education teachers are not trained for that. So I went to mental health counseling, brought in the specialist for that. Now the current one's a beautiful one because she was one of my undergraduates as a special ed major, came back into mental health counseling so she understands the population beautifully and she adds the added value for the relationship skill training. Okay, so the basic program again is the 2 years you live on campus, 3 people in an apartment with 1 independent living assistant there. Their schedule is busy, okay? One of the reasons that I set the limit for 18 to 26 is it was very challenging to get a person to succeed if you've not been engaged in either school or the job environment prior to coming in here. So what happens, unfortunately, is I have many parents come up to me, really want their son or daughter involved, but he or she's been basically on the couch for the last 10 years. In other words, is parents' own mortality has come into play, realizing that nobody is going to take care of my son or daughter as good as I am, but I realize I'm not going to be around for much longer anymore. At that point, we found the success ratio is too limited because our kids, I'll show you the schedule, is we have them engaged from 7:30 in the morning to basically 7:30, 8:30 at night. So to come from a point where you're sitting on a couch eating bonbons, playing video games all day long, to coming in to try to succeed in an academic and a work environment was too much stress. So that is our limitation of why the age limitation on there. Okay, the advanced program. This is for those that have demonstrated success, that they can safely live independently. They've already mastered many of the employment skills. So to become invited, it's an invite only for the 3rd and 4th years is you have to work 25 hours out in town in an employed setting. So you have to demonstrate your capability for that. The issue is a lot of them not demonstrate the ability to live safely independently yet. And so that's what the focus really on the training here is much more for the apartment skill training. The cooking, the cleaning, the bill paying, everything else to succeed successfully independently there. And you'll see a lot of it. Now, this was the most challenging. What is the ideal Clemson student? Because we get this question from every parent and every teacher, special ed teacher around from across the states. And if you look on paper, for those who are special educators, we can look pretty much determine the success for students by looking at their portfolio. The challenge with our population is our best student and our most challenging student looks identical on paper, absolutely identical. So really the ultimate is the interview process is really the determining factor. Because I said, parents want their child to succeed in our program. But the issue is when we separate the parent from the child and we talk with the student, it's another ball game. He or she may not want to become participating. So that drive to become independent, to have to want a job, that is really the most success. So our greatest graduate, and I can tell you right now, is McKeever, kindergarten reading level. You'd be like, absolutely no. We got him his driver's license already. He's employed. He's one of the best employees that they've ever had down at Fike Recreation and out in town where we employed him. One of our most challenging was the exact, if you looked at it, it was the exact same student looking on a piece of paper, but it was the motivation for the student themselves. And I think in college students, you'd find the exact same thing for who succeeds and who does not succeed within college. So again, intellectual disabilities is interesting because we've had all kinds of applicants. We've had people, because Nebraska, you're big on the football too, we've had people trying to get their sons in who wanted to play for Clemson football team, and because they didn't have high enough grades, I'm like, that's not going to work. NCAA is not going to buy into this one at all, okay? So that's not going to work. The program overview structure, I know it's an eye chart, but essentially I have 4 teachers right now. I have a coordinator for the program, have a transition coordinator there. On the right side is the independent living assistants. We have 6 of them. Next fall we'll have 7. I'm bringing on another job coach, opening up a nonprofit business out in town. So rather than having job coaches going all over God's creation to try to we can have one site where the job coach can come and I can take in a lot of students at that business itself. So that's in the process with legal. And legal is my worst enemy of all. They are the thorn in my claw. We'll talk more about legal. All right. So the life classes itself emphasize functional living skills. The functional math is all for banking, paying bills, okay? So everything there for literacy, self-advocacy skill, employment, and health and wellness. We have the highest obesity rates in the United States is with intellectual disabilities. Down syndrome is at 56%. Again, another great opportunity to work out to colleges, work with nutrition science. They come in, they teach our cooking classes in the apartments for the students. They come in, they assess our students for everything from DEXA scans, where they scan the entire body to find out where the muscle mass, where the body fat composition is. They put them on VO2 for the exercise bikes. They design personalized exercise fitness program trainings for them. So it works out wonderful having experts come in. Their current trainer is one of my doc students, Dan. He was a strength coach for the Cincinnati Reds. So he comes in there and says, I can't trust anybody more to understand how to do that rather than asking a special ed teacher to try to develop a curriculum for that. So again, working across campus there. This is an example of the functional academics. Again, as I talked about, budgeting, time management is a huge issue with intellectual disabilities. Hygiene is another issue, okay? As again, for those, I see that the choir already shaking their heads up and down. Very similar programs in dealing with this populations there. Very good reasons is, again, many times that they come, kind of like my 4-year-old Max is basically after the clothes are thrashed, they'd be more than happy to pick up those same clothes again and go to work the next day and go, we're good to go, okay? Not going to keep you employed, especially if you're in the food industry, if you're working at Firehouse Subs or something along those lines. Doesn't do really well. My independent living assistants, I cannot praise these kids enough. These are young undergraduate students, special ed majors, engineering majors. They've done everything from put on bathing suits to show them how to properly, bathe, how to shave, everything, every other responsibility they've taken on. I couldn't even imagine when I was 18, 19, 20 years old taking on those responsibilities. The huge issues with the ILAs, though, is if you look in my classes of undergraduate, 20 students, how many females? 19, 1 male. Well, you know what? Disproportionate male population students here. So, I was in a dilemma. How do I get male people to come in and serve as ILAs there? And I tried everything. The old adage, earn the man through the stomach, food plans. I offered higher wages than everybody. I offered everything. The minute, it was like one of my volunteer coordinators came in and goes, have you thought of food plans? And I'm looking at the budget and everything else. I'm like, oh, it's going to be tight and everything else. I go, okay, breaking down the door to try to get in for the bloody food plan. So, okay, I give in. So it actually works. 19-year-old male, he just wants to eat. That's all he wants to do. All right. The key here to our lessons is we don't hold many lessons in the classroom environment. We hold them in the environment they're going. So if it's banking, we go down to the bank. We work relationships with them. If we're talking about cleaning, we have our lessons in the room for the washroom, essentially, for washing and cleaning. Cooking classes are held in the apartments themselves. So there's no reason to teach something about cooking, how to cook macaroni and cheese or pizza or something else in a classroom environment where they don't actually get hands-on practice for it. Working with nutrition science, we've actually developed, we're going to go to press with quick, is our little cookbook. So essentially they have life's lessons of cookbooks that they can actually bring with them. They've mastered by the time in their program that will get them pretty much through their adult life. You can add, subtract a few other recipes there for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That took a little while too also because I started coming in and going in there and they're making fancy desserts with I'm like, really? They're going to eat mac and cheese and hot dogs or whatever, something that's healthy. You keep it as simple as possible there, especially with the obesity. Let's not focus on dessert, shall we? Jell-O seems to be very fine and adequate for that. All right. Sample of the schedule. As you'll see, they are busier than your traditional undergrad students here. So the average is getting up at 7:30 in the morning, going to class. They'll have their classes, lunch in the dining room. At the afternoon, they'll go to either more classes in apartments, they'll go to the work environment to there. We added the workout with nutrition science there, so they have to go to the gym, our called Fike Gym is what we call it there. And then again, dinner, and then evening activities, cooking classes again. And we have the volunteers that teach everything from, if you come in, you say, I love guitar. Well, then you take some students and you teach them guitar. If you like knitting, then you take those that are interested in knitting and you teach knitting activities there. But there's always something to engage the students. This is actually what the parents actually love the most about it, is I've heard just compliment after compliment after compliment, and why most of the parents, after they graduate, want them to stay in Clemson. Because all through their lives as they grew up, my son never had a friend. My son stayed in his room, he was depressed and everything else. I come to Clemson, and my son is hanging out with friends who do not have disabilities, he's engaged in activities, and he or she's happy for the first time in their lives. So why would I want to pull my child back again? So can he stay in the Clemson area afterwards? And so we'll talk about that also, as alumni support group there. To be considered a Clemson student, you have to be registered for a Clemson course. Okay, and this is where my philosophy differs from many of the other programs out there. Many other programs just enroll them in Astronomy 101, Math 102, and they sit with a student in there to take in. I understand the social benefits of being included. However, if my job is for employment, they have skill deficits they need to address. Okay, other programs will go, well, my other son's a slob, his apartment's a mess and everything else. Yes, but your other son has the skill. It's not a skill deficit, it's a performance deficit. Our kids have a skill deficit. They need to develop that. So we teach those functional academics. The only traditional course that they will take is a leisure skill course. So we work with leisure skills, PRTM department. The first semester we bring them, we have just our life students, we bring them to every different class to find out what their interests are. Rock climbing, yoga, power walking, whatever it may be, frisbee, ultimate frisbee. And then from there on, they sign up for the classes that they enjoy and want to participate in. So that is the credit. This is a video of one of our students, Dylan, and bowling is a big one. He likes bowling.
We have bowling class on Thursdays and Tuesdays, and we come here to get our bowling shoes and get our bowling ball, and then we bowl a game. I like to work at this to meet new people and have fun. My best game would be, well, I have a lot of best games. I've bowled one strike. We do teams because when we see so at the end of bowling, we do teams. So they put us with new people to see who would win.
Okay, and I have a few clips I'll show you throughout there. Let me go back. We have tremendous support from Clemson Athletics, okay, from both internship opportunities there as well as employment opportunities. So they started out with football, and football was like a rock star for them. The apartments they live in is adjacent to those of the athletes. The athletes have adopted them like their brothers and sisters. It is the most wonderful thing in the world. However, they do learn Deshaun Watson gets harassed constantly by our girls who wants his phone number and texts him at 3 in the morning and everything else. So there's some downsides to that one there. We get a few complaints there. There's Deshaun right there, our quarterback there. But they've worked in all different capacities. This is the most watched video that Clemson has ever released.
How y'all doing? Good. Coach Sweeney is very excited you are coming to practice today.
Do like Deshaun Watson. Tell him I'll be able to throw the ball way further now.
First game of the season, he ran into the wall, so he was out of commission. So.
What's happening? Thank you, man. Good to see y'all. Hey, guess what? At the end of practice, we got a surprise for everybody.
He works for the football team now.
One more, strike a pose. Hey, how are you?
What's up, man? How you doing? I had a great time.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you. You, sir?
Here's what we're going to do. All right, and Hope, I know Hope's she's always wanted to do this, okay? So we're all ready to do this. Guess what? We're going to load the buses. And we get on the fire, and we drive around. We're going to run down the hill.
It's actually quite a steep ramp. I'm surprised more athletes don't fall on that politically.
How fun was that? Your granddad is never smiling right now.
It was great. I've been wanting to do it for my whole life, and I've been telling Dada to do it for the first time when I first came to Clemson, and I got a chance to do it. And I feel like Dada is in my heart, and I want to see the failure as a day in my heart too.
And Coach Dabo has been wonderful. He donates to our scholarship fund. One of our goals is to get $1 million raised for scholarships, so it doesn't just have to be from children from high socioeconomic families that can attend, because it is an expensive program. Again, here's the outlay of the apartments. It's 4-bedroom, 2 baths. One is an independent living assistant who is an undergraduate student there. And again, the ILAs, they're on task basically from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. That was not allowed on campus in the beginning. Housing did not want us whatsoever there. And I finally, risk management came to my aid, and I said, hey, what happens, because we have some incidences every now and then to come up there, and I go, we have no support system if an ILA can't respond. We don't have other ILAs down the hall or anything else. And risk management came to my supply and says, yes, it's much safer. And so we got them on campus. But the interesting part was when I created the 3rd and 4th year, and then I go, I want them off campus to be able to do things like pay rent, utilities, and everything else in practice. Then risk management is like, Joe, have you not been harassing me for the last several years to get your students on campus, and now you're telling me you want to get them off? And I'm like, these are the safe ones. These are very high functioning. You know, we've already proven their capabilities there. So again, I'll show you. Zach has a speech impediment, so we actually had SK, one of my instructors, did the verbiage underneath.
My name is with class with.
And these are the apartments. These are the cleanest apartments you will ever see on a college campus for college students.
Watch TV, watch sports, and got Nimbles, RAs, Sub-Living, and Steven, and Kylie, Mr. Living. Love him.
Leland was an engineer student. He's graduating. He was awesome.
Living, and kissing. Did projects, clean mirrors,
We have a behavior system for those special education. You're aware of the different level systems, so their freedoms, what they can do, navigate campus, and everything else is based on their performance in the apartments, the job site, and everything else, and at home. Okay. The counseling. This was an added position. Again, I grow it slowly so I can identify gaps and friction points as the program grows, and this is without doubt the largest need that I had that we had no capacity to address, okay, because the relationship issues. So I sent all my SPED teachers to sexual awareness training for kids with disabilities. That didn't do jack, okay? So no, that cost me about $8,000 or whatever else in the summertime, and it's still because that's not their training specialty. So I brought in the counseling, and that has worked extremely well because every issue that every student has, our kids have, and again, but it takes that extra therapy, those training sessions. They do group and they do individual based on the needs of the students themselves. And that's been the best bucks I've ever spent for an investment there. Giving back to the community. My job here is, my emphasis is, we just don't take from the community. We give back. If you want, one of the things is kids with intellectual disabilities, the most disengaged population of all disabilities from the natural community. The way to give back is to give back to the church, the community, however it may be. I've run, since I went to Clemson, I've run adaptive sports programs. I started there. Equine therapy, challenger baseball, and top soccer for the last 12 years. So I bring my athletes, there's Megan, one of my life students there, with one of my athletes with disabilities. If you can't play in an organized sport, that's why I run the adaptive sports program. So I pair in the beginning my volunteer students. I have Clemson students that come out. We have about 50 athletes. And so I get about 75 volunteer students to work one-on-one with them or to serve as coaches in different capacity on the field. And then I ask, would you be willing to also work with a life student who our coaches helps coach? But that way it's not just a life student with a young athlete with a disability, but I have a little support system there. But they absolutely love that there. They also, on every Friday, they give back everything from Habitat to Humanity, cleaning up parks or whatever else, but we're always involved in the community and the church, helping giving back to Clemson. So that works very well. The volunteers and mentors, we would not be able to do everything that we do without these bodies. I can't afford to do this, okay? My budget is $680,000 for this year. I can't afford anything else there, okay? So basically what happens is we started with about 40 volunteers when it first started, amazingly special ed teachers, okay, teacher candidates. But now it has gone basically viral across campus there. So we have from every major, every different, from freshmen to seniors, they come out. We use workout buddies. So you like to lift weights, okay? When do you work out? And she goes, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'll lift weights. Well, then I coordinate, so one of my students is down there. You like to go do Zumba or whatever else the thing is. We coordinate with them. If you like to cook, then we set you up with a cooking class and to help out to mentor them. I also have a direct mentoring program. The mentors are assigned one-on-one each semester, and they have to meet every week with them, and we work on specific behavioral goals. So if I have students with autism that have difficulties with greeting others and greeting skills, their goal may be how to introduce. So you set up, you have Confederates with your friends, and I said bring them to, if you're part of sorority, bring her to the sorority. And so bring her to the meetings. And so you go in, but you set up the Confederate and you go, okay, I'm going to introduce Joe. His goal is to say, hi, my name is Joe, or whatever else, and they set up. And in the beginning, I may ignore you, but by the end of the semester, we're working on that behavioral goal, and it increases tremendously. The best example of this I ever saw was one of my students. My first one was called Bag Lady. She brought everything that she owned to school every single day. And they were beautiful bags, Vera Bradley bags or whatever else, the best there were, but she was strapped like she was hiking the Appalachian Trail. And the teachers and I would go, you can't do this. You can't, in other words, you're not missing the bus. You can't walk across campus. It's uncomfortable. Didn't matter. We're adults. We're teachers. We have no respect with them, essentially. So, but her mentor, somebody that she looks up to, remember modeling, the concept of modeling is Michael Jordan's selling the tennis shoes, not Joe Ryan, because everybody looks up to Michael Jordan. So all she did was, I go, this is the goal. So they're eating lunch, and she brings all her bags, and she goes, that's just not cool. None of my friends would ever do that. Next day, she had her one purse with her, and that was all she did. So again, the power of modeling, okay, in regards to the mentors work wonderful there. That was example another of the mentors there. One-on-one support, that we get a new one each semester there. And they actually get 1 credit course. It's creative inquiry. We have an undergraduate course, so they get 1 credit for working with our students there. Mentor involvement integration is, again, every which way that you bring them. You can go cooking class, you can bring them bowling, you can bring them to Starbucks, whatever. You just need to spend quality time with him or her and working on that behavioral goal that we assign you. Extracurricular social activities. We do everything. These kids are from the equine therapy to hiking on Saturdays. They have to do an activity with the independent living assessments every weekend there. I just helped organize. I brought several of my leaders. We held a Night to Shine event, the first one in the central area for our area. So we came out and we brought some of those guys to help set up and everything else. It's a prom for adults with intellectual disabilities from 16 to our oldest guest was 78 years old. It was kind of cool. So numerous different social activities. And now the important stuff, the research initiatives. Now my teachers go, Dr. Ryan's going to do more research. What is that all that about? And I go, we are a laboratory school. This is what we work on, okay? Solutions, not just for these kids, but that can generalize across all the population for young adults with intellectual disabilities. Where we have issues is employment, okay? A pitiful employment. About 1/3, NLTS studies will show 1/3 of adults with intellectual disabilities will be employed. Time management. means nothing to low-functioning ID. So it doesn't matter if your job is at 3 o'clock. You may show up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, or whenever, if you're watching TV, you're just going to continue watching the movie there. Health and fitness, I talked about obesity. Driver readiness is a new one. It took me a long time to get into this, to buy into this one there, okay, because of the risk management issue and legal again. Parents have continuously asked me, especially for the higher functioning ones now, my advanced program is, how can you help my student? Because again, as rural areas, if you're not on a bus route, employer may be willing to hire my student, but I can't get them there, okay? So I still, it's like daycare, mom dropping off the student to get them from point A to B. So I'm working with ICAR, I'll talk to you about that one there. And commuter mobility is how do I get the low functioning ones, okay, around safely, because even if I train them how to use the CAT buses, which we do right away, is to get around town, we call them CAT buses for the university, if he misses the stop, he's screwed, okay? Because if I always get off at 4th Street or whatever else and I miss that stop, I have no clue how to get back to 4th Street again because I only know how to get it from one direction, one approach. So commuter mobility is a thing, and I already talked about the hygiene, the importance. The first is time management. This was my first one with doc students here addressing is, again, Jill never showed up. So we lost a couple of positions with her because she was never on time at work. And you were employment in Korea, you were telling me. Never on time. Well, employers, you burn bridges. It's a rural town, 9,000 people, not many businesses. I can't afford to burn bridges. So what we did was we set up a ceiling effect over here. Is this a laser or not? Ceiling was like the 15 minutes. I'd have basically one of the teachers tell Jill, you've got to go to work. So on the baseline is every single time she had to be told to go to work. We gave her a vibrating watch with warnings, so what you have to do, go to class, go to work, or whatever else there. Bam, go down to a floor effect. She was on time every single time, took it away. The first day she kept asking the teachers, is it time, is it time, is it time? By the second day she completely forgot about it, went up to baseline, went up to the ceiling effect, had it told, and they gave it back, showed. Clear distinction, perfect for single case research. Health and fitness. So I spent a lot of money now with these doc students from nutrition science coming over and specializing because, again, Down syndrome, have issues with vertebrae, what things they could use. We go through that. The weight machines, everything's great. Go through the training, and now you're trained. I say you're good to go. I'm a health fitness trainer, and I leave. What happens to her in the gym? What does she do? She's checking her iPhone, she's listening to music. Has she even gone near the weights machines or whatever? She's one of those people, and Ron would go nuts, is the person who's sitting on the machine, taking it up and not using it or whatever, just using it as a... So in other words is, okay, now what am I going to do? Hire a job coach to follow her around from machine to machine to machine, essentially, or buddy? I'm like, I don't have enough. I have a lot of volunteers to go there, but the key is would Zumba, yoga, organized group things keep them more engaged? And that's what this would do, is the measure of percentage of time is, you see is when they're independent and we trained them, it went down the hill. Once we left, basically she worked out less and less and he worked out less and less. Then I throw them into basically a yoga class. And what happens? They're engaged almost all the time. Plus the benefits of that social is, when you go to Zumba, do you go to any particular workout or anything? Who does organized? Anybody?
Somebody to tell me what to do.
You pay some. But do you see the same people?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. See, that's the whole thing. Again, our population is not integrated socially. So now if I always come and I see John, I go, hey, John, how's it going today? Or whatever else is. Now you have that social interaction with the gen population. Does that make sense? And that's the beauty of this one there. So not only do they participate more, but they're socially engaged. And the more you know, you go, hey, good to see you again. Come on in. It motivates them. So that was the beauty of that one there. That was, so one, Journal of Special Ed Technology, and this is another JSET publication there. This was the job coaching. If you train my students with job coaching, I would talk this over lunch, is basically is, whether it be copy machines or anything else, if they mastered it, it's fine. But the problem is many tasks in an office environment are not repetitive. You may only do it once a week. That doesn't work well with intellectual disability. So when they hit that hiccup, I can go find my kids in the library, and they're sitting behind the bookshelf like this, and they're just standing there. Or they're sitting in front of the copy machine thing, just standing there. Because they're too embarrassed to go ask for help for the thing. But so basically, after an hour and a half, you go, what happened to Joe? And then you go find him, he goes, he hit that hiccup. He didn't know what the steps were to do the fax, to do the shredding, or whatever else. So what one of my doc students, James, came up with is portable assistive technology, working with computer science guys, is basically we had 3 different prompts. We had video prompt, audio prompt, and combined. So it's the different steps of the work task. So The job coach, I only have to train how to do it and use the technology. Job coach steps back, and if he runs into a hiccup, now he's got his iPhone. They all have iPhones with them. They just hit it, and they go, copy machine. Oh, that's how I do it. And if I don't understand it, now I can go to the video portion or whatever else. So that worked very well there. All right, driver readiness. This was the biggest one, even for me, because I'm pretty, you know, I was pushing legal all the time, and even I understood one of my contracts was even if you came with a driver's permit, you were not allowed to drive on campus. That was one of my gives to legal to get them on the campus. I understood the need for it now. So now I went up to ICAR, with the International Center for Automotive Research for Clemson University, and I go, this is the dilemma. You work with traumatic brain injury, you work with veterans, wounded veterans, and everything else. Can you identify my kids who have the potential to become independent drivers? So we're doing a pilot, and I've just got text messages left and right from this is Dan, one of my doc students there, is now we measure the dependent variables is lane position, so the computer measures, you know, how long you drift, whether you can maintain speed at 35 miles an hour, whether the vehicle ahead of you, whether they brake, are you responding, in other words, to braking, how many times that you went off the road, all brake and gas accelerations, and so now we provide training to them to show the increase. So we're right about halfway through the study right now with 4 students. So, and these are the advanced students, so they're getting training in the classroom on the rules of the road. So the goal is at the end of the semester, they're going to sit for that test and take the South Carolina driver's permit test. But at that point, I'm giving it to mom and dad for risk management's sake and say, you bring them out. But traditionally what happened was many of these kids would get their license, but they tried, like my brother had intellectual disabilities 13 times to get it. So you'd come back and go, I didn't see the red light. You'd be like, you didn't see the red light? What do you mean you didn't see the red light? And so it's unsafe. And so this is a safer way to provide the training, and then when he or she is capable, cognitively ability to do that, then you bring them into the actual car environment and do that. So that's the second stage. We haven't gotten there yet there. And then this is really the answer, assistive technology. And where's my phone? Here it is. This is the future. I can't afford to have a job coach paid $15 an hour to follow somebody around who's getting minimum wage. That is not economically sound policy. So what I can do is develop applications here that he or she can use, similar to one in the work environment, that they can apply to their real life. And I can hire a job coach, maybe retrain or what have you. So this one, working with Roy now for the last year from computer science, what he did was I walked to his students, his grad students, and I go, design me applications, these are my needs. Hygiene, which is really tough. You couldn't do that one. How do you make them sure? So we did sensor devices. So if you came into the bathroom and the sensor, you used the toilet flush, to not get the prompt of wash your hands, you had to go within a certain time limit to go back to the sink and turn it on. So we're still working on that. The ones that I funded, the best ones out of all the students, I funded for them to develop. And so they're ready to beta test here within 1 week. So one is the mobility application. And this is to get you from point A to B. This is for the lower functioning students, okay, in the first 2 years. They get lost on campus. They miss their stop. They don't know how to get back. This is hooked up into the GPS plus the bus system and everything else. So in time management, if I need to get to work at 3 p.m., it calculates, it's already in the program, it goes, you need to leave your apartment based on where you are at 2 o'clock. And it'll give me, you walk to this bus station, so we type in waypoints into the computer program. This is where you pick up this bus. It's hooked up to the bus system, and it'll tell you if it's running late, on time, or whatever. As I'm going, I get engaged in a conversation on the bus. Not a good thing for young adults with intellectual disabilities. I forget where my stop is. Now it prompts me, verbiage and color, saying I'm getting near my stop, and when it gets near my stop, it goes to red. So all the different steps on where to go, it'll give you both verbal and written prompts there. The other one is a shopping application for the advanced students, not the low functioning. They don't need that one. Once they're trained, they're good on the mobility. This one is now we develop your menu at Saturday. We go for the rest of the week. You want spaghetti on Monday? You want pizza? You want hot dog? Whatever your menu is, okay? And the thing is, now you just click in. You go, I want pizza here for breakfast. I want cereal. It calculates this. Now it has the inventory of what you need. Now you go to your closet and it goes, okay, how much spaghetti do you have? Do you have enough box of spaghetti? Do you have to no spaghetti? And if you click red, that automatically goes to your shopping application, what you need to pick up. And so based on if you have milk, you click green or whatever, or it's half fill or whatever, and it goes, so now you go down to Buy Low, King Cullen, or whatever the store is here, and it goes, based on your food diet this week and your inventory, this is what you need to buy at the store. And that way you don't have 7 jars of peanut butter in your house or whatever else, and all the other things. A lot of people need these applications. My wife thinks I need this application. So, and this is just ready for beta testing here in 1 week. And then I work with Elliot and his doc students in food nutrition science there, okay? And this is basically, there's a plethora of information about strength training and everything else on the traditional population. There's a complete gap for young adults with intellectual disabilities. So what he's doing is extending the research population there, and that's why so it's great work. It's a win-win. So you come in, you get the wristband in as a freshman, so we monitor you for 1 week, how many hours you sleep, what you walk, everything else. You know, you wear it all the time, 24/7, except for when you shower there. And then basically he puts you through the fitness training, strength training, develops a program for you. We send out people who are trainers with you in the gym, teach you what to do, and then we assess you again at the end. And the parents get basically everything from body mass index to everything else. We've also developed, a lot of our kids have sleep problems. So you'll see they're only sleeping 3 hours at night or whatever else, and then we try to interview, you know, is it some type of breathing apparatus, what's the difficulties with him or her sleeping, and that's why they're not performing well in the next day. But this is a study that we just submitted. Okay. Outcomes. This is what we're proud of. Okay, so if you look across NLTS study, 1/3 of the students have employed, 24 basically less than a quarter independent living. If you go through our basic program, 81% of our graduates are employed, 43% are living independently if you go through our basic. If you go through the 4-year advanced, 100% employed, 100% living independently. We are one of the most successful programs in the United States, okay, point blank. Now there's no reason, this is what I'm working on is the 81%. There's no reason that if you go 2 years with me that you're not employed. The weakness here is the parents. So that's what happens is we need to do more training towards the parents because they come home and then basically I'm saying your son is not safe to live independently, but then they basically take over those responsibilities and you're basically undoing and the child's regressing from what we've left them at. Okay. Long-term goals of the program. Okay, one is to increase the capacity to 40 students by 2020. And so again, it's incrementally. What I did was increase the size of the freshmen, and that's basically, we're capping that now, and over the next several years, we'll be up to 40 students. Create an organization, official organization, we're doing that right now in this semester and thing for the 500 basically students is, we're creating in silos now, because what's happening is, one person getting the message out to 500 is not effective at all. So what happens is, you may be the student leader for activities outside. You may be the student activities for meals. You may be the student activities for, so we have 5 different basic specialties for them to do. And then we have leadership positions there. Establish business partnership with Walgreens. We need employers with capacity, okay? Walgreens Distribution Center in Anderson is one of those that has that capacity. They're willing to hire individuals with disabilities. So we're going down here at this summer to get trained as trainers for them. We'll train our students, and they will have agreed to hire our students afterwards. But the beauty of Walgreens is, because most of our students are from out of state, like an incoming class of 12 students, 8 are from out of state. Colorado, New Hampshire, Georgia, North Carolina. When you go back home, if you've been worked in Walgreens and you've been trained, there's an opportunity there for you to work for Walgreens again, and the benefits, okay? Other ones, we're right now meeting with legal again on this one, is to create essentially purchase off-campus housing. This was a one that we actually had funding. I had $1.2 million donation for it to buy housing. The issue with housing is I want to own it off campus is because I can't control it when you sign your own individual contracts. So you're not allowed to have alcohol, you're not allowed to have drugs in my program or anything else, but if you get in with a roommate that does have those things, I have no control whatsoever. So it's a risk management issue on my thing. But the provost turned down the donation on that one because he goes, if it hits a certain level, it has to be in the best interest of the university. So we have issues just still on that one there. So I go, would you do this to engineering? I don't think so. I was like, purchase off-campus housing, establish nonprofit, and this one again is to build capacity where our job coaches, rather than going, it's a small town, 9,000 population, 1 out of 10 folks will have a family member with intellectual disability. How many here have a family member with intellectual disability? Okay, just about right on the odds there, okay? You understand that. So when we go knocking on your door and we say, is there an opportunity for an internship or a paid position, can we get your students there? They understand. The other 9 people don't get it. So it's a hard sell, okay? So in other words, in a tight, small community, this is not Lincoln. This is not New York City or anything else. We have a limited number of businesses. So my proposal is to create a nonprofit, a used clothing store, basically gently used clothing store, into which, in other words, to train them in there's one site, we can manage it with less personnel and go forth there. And the profits would go to the scholarship funds. My wife came up with the name, New Life. All right, and design and patent portable assistive technologies. This is working with Roy, basically. So we've got 3 technology devices, applications right now. And as these come online, my doc students will use in my single case study. They will implement it to see the effectiveness there. If it's effective, then we'll sell them to other programs or family members who would like to use them in their own hometown. The other one is raise $1 million in life scholarship. I have about $170,000 right now. Need for the 4% rule to give out $40,000 a year. I need $1 million. So that's my goal on the thing. We've actually violated that rule of how much we've given out just because of you've been in the program for a year and a half, and then mom is ready to sell the house to keep the child in. And we're like, okay, we're going to go over the 4% rule here again. In other words, so those are the issues that we have, and because it is expensive, it's $12,000 per semester going in, and then plus you have the room and board and everything else. And then again is many of the parents, they're very happy with the child because he's got a social network, he's got employment, he's got living taken care of. We can kind of monitor them. Do we establish an affiliate program for our graduates who stay in the local area so we can monitor them more effectively and maybe have seminars, maybe quarterly seminars on cooking, on budgeting, or whatever it may be based on the needs of the individuals. So that's up for the next year. And then graduation, it took us 7 years, but we had a shift of presidents. And this president who just came, has a young daughter with intellectual disabilities. And so when I sold this program of having them walk at graduation, he gave me the thumbs up.
Today we begin a new tradition at graduation as we recognize the young people who have successfully completed the Clemson LIFE program. Clemson LIFE stands for Learning is for Everyone, and it is a very special program for some very special young people. It is a post-secondary education program for young adults with intellectual disabilities. The program teaches functional academics, employment, social, and leisure skills to promote independent living and job opportunities. Clemson LIFE provides a collegiate experience for several incredible young people who never thought they would have one. And I am thrilled that today we will acknowledge their hard work and their accomplishments. I'm proud.
It's only a 3-hour video, so don't worry at all. We have the longest graduations of all. He shakes every hand. You're in there with your iPhone and work. It's 3 hours of just... So they got a standing ovation at graduation, which is nice. And the first one, Kelsey, was actually the one that the mother was ready to sell the house. Sorry.
Kelsey Brianne Dungan. David William Seville.
So the president goes to David, he goes, you just come by whenever you want. One Wednesday evening at 9:30 at night.
Wayne Ward.
Came by and had himself pizza in his kitchen there. So it's like, okay, we got to have a meeting here. Okay. Technology. This is huge. And again, I'm not an educator. I couldn't even fix the bloody, how do you get rid of the warning sign or whatever else in the thing. This is why, hiring young people, whatever, is so important because they all have different things. Like Facebook, if you want to hit moms from 45 to 55, 60 years of age, that's it. If you want to hit younger populations, girls in like 20s to 30s, Instagram. Everything has its niche there. So we hit Facebook, we have 3,500 friends. Instagram, we have 2,800 basically, and Twitter over 1,000 there, okay? So reaching out to the different populations is huge to get hold of that. And again, as it's worked, the majority of all our students are from across the nation now coming in there, which the original funding agency was a little bit upset because they were like, it's a South Carolina program we funded you for, and actually only very few of our students now are South Carolina residents there. So, but we've tried to make sure that every class incoming has some representation from at the state level there. But in essence that is the presentation on Clemson Life. Learning is for everyone there. It's been a very successful program. I had no idea it was going, when I left Nebraska, that this was going to be such a huge line for me of your research capacity. I left as a BD guy and psychotropic medications there. Those are still active for me, but created this, and this just kind of kept on taking off and off as it went. Just to show for those starting out is, just because you have this game plan, be Gumby, okay? You know, opportunities may arise, and they're great opportunities, and they're things that I never thought that, you know, when I left, if Ron asked me, what are you going to do, I never would have thought that I was going to be running, you know, a post-secondary education program for young adults with ID. So, but it's been absolutely a blessed experience, and I've been very grateful for the opportunity. Questions? Yes?
What would you do if you were to revamp another level of the program to get those 10, 15-year-old couch, you know, they've been on the couch potato for 15 years, to get them moving again?
There's so many programs, and they're all, the beauty of post-secondary education for ID is they all have a different flavor. And so when a parent comes up to me, and I go out I'll be out in Auburn here shortly because they want to create a program, but with Georgia, different universities to help them start there, I go, don't model us. Go out and find and see what your niche is, because it's like having a business. You say for sale, you know, open. You have no clue who's going to be coming down your door. My goal strategically was to go for the lower function because we provide more structure than anybody out there, more support systems. So mine was Down syndrome, kind of, because that was my funding agency there, was I'm thinking 45 to 60 IQ range there, but then you're dealing with, you know, students with autism are coming in or whatever else. You don't know who's applying to your program. You can't control that factor. So I just would not expand to that. I mean, there's enough for me to go here to serve, because you can't serve everybody. You just can't. And if you try to, you just water down the system so much that it's not effective. And it's just like my teachers, I mean, they're special education teachers, which is nice, is I get to hire my own students when they go. So I pick the very best. You volunteered for the LIFE program for 4 years. I know you. You've been tutoring and everything else. So I hold the informal interview, and I'm like, okay, so tell me what you're going to do, and you're hired. You know, it's very, and again, it works well, but you can't address everything. You just can't. It's too large. There's got to be another school out there that just deals with the non-traditional post-secondary education applicants, because, and my biggest headache is the relationship. So do I really want a 40-year-old man hanging out with an 18-year-old girl? Do you see where I'm saying? You have a whole host of issues that you don't want to go down, and I deal with every single day, you know, in regards to that risk assessment. And I meet with legal. Literally, the first 2 years, I was in legal's office every bloody week, being called in front of the carpet. Every bloody week, because they didn't want the program there. This was not in accordance with the top 20 university goals. And because they thought diversity was black and white. That was diversity to them. Maybe Asian. We might consider that in South Carolina. And I go, diversity is everything. Sexual orientation, it's intellectual disabilities. Diversity is everything. And that was a concept that they didn't embrace. But now it's 180 degrees separation now. Now I have a president with a daughter with an intellectual disability. I have his wife. I invite her on my advisory board or whatever else there. And even for like graduation. No, no, no. They will not walk. They will not walk. And then I get called by the provost. So tell me how many students are walking this thing. And I'm in a meeting, and I'm like, and I understand pushing from the bottom did not work, but it was like, you know, mentioning from the top down, it's a different ball game. And so, you know, I'm extremely fortunate. I just don't have, and legal is literally my only thorn that I have left in the thing. And I have to go back and do this again with the driving, with the business, and everything else there. So, but again, my thing is you don't try to serve everybody, because it's too small, and the teachers can't serve these different populations. It's like giving somebody with a, you know, kindergarten reading level to, you know, 6th grade, 7th grade, and saying serve them all at one time is, you're just not doing as efficient of a job. You know, so specialize. Yes?
Why did you pick students with intellectual disabilities?
Well, it was a grant fund opportunity for ID. I had a brother with intellectual disabilities, and I knew the sadness that can come along with it, with trying to, Child Protective Services get involved with the family and everything else because not proper care or whatever, or training there, hygiene issues, and again, it was, my parents had to monitor them closely throughout the entire time, and as they aged, that mortality issue came in there. I just remember going in and visiting New York one time, and he's like, wait, I got to put the trash out. And he opens the window and he throws it out the window. I mean, it was just kind of all these issues that you deal with intellectual disabilities is just atrocious. And that's why, so it doesn't take long before CPS gets involved, everybody else. And it's a need. It's a gap that's out there that the population, and again, the intellectual disabilities, they're great employees. They have less sick days, they show up, they're more motivated. If you have a lot of entry-level jobs, especially in like Lincoln, they have a turnover that's tremendous. And what? Because they don't want to do that. That's not their goal or whatever else. So you go down to Walgreens Distribution Center or whatever, and you see young adults or middle-aged adults with intellectual disabilities, that's their passion. That's their life, is they're working there. They are dedicated, they are hardworking, and even Walgreens, you're talking to the manager, individuals with disabilities outproduce those without disabilities. Because all there is, they could care less. If you don't produce as a disability, you're fired, just like anybody else. And it is all quantitative. This is your production chart, this is where you are, this is where you should be. And if you go into the yellow zone, we're going to counsel you. If you go in the red zone, you're gone. And I don't care what disability or not disability you have. So, and they outproduce them.
Do you have any students in the program that have siblings that are at Clemson?
Yes.
And is there an advantage by cost?
It wasn't, no, there's no, we are self-supporting. We are completely, Clemson gives us no money at all other than the space.
Is there an advantage to the family if a second sibling who
No.
has an intellectual disability comes to Clemson because their older sibling came? Okay.
No, I mean, I've got to cover my costs of my staff every year. I can't reach to the dean and go, please give me money or whatever else. There is none, Joe. You got to let go of somebody.
But you do have siblings in the program, in other words.
I have siblings that where the student, where the sister was a traditional student and the brother was, so that has happened. But there's no funding benefit or anything else, no discount or anything else.
But I've known two in my life. I went to grad school and a guy came from New York and he brought his adult brother with him. And the issue was what would be a program for him while he's working on his graduate degree. This is the perfect situation. I mean, if the
that's a good recruit, a little niche on that one to recruit at the same time. But no, and again, every funding is through donations, private donations, which we've been very fortunate. The more, and again, this is why I put so much in advertising. That's why you see a lot of videos and everything else is you want to get out there.
What is the cost compared to a college education?
It's about the same for Clemson. It's going to total, it's about 30-something a year with all expenses and everything else. So but again, we provide more supports. And for many of our students who have come from a residential, especially in the Northeast, we recruit from up there, residential is about, 60 to 65. And we're giving your kid independent living and for employment skills at the same time, something they were just getting academics in essence before. So we're a lot cheaper in certain aspects, but we are steep. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, and that's why I wanted the scholarship, so it just wasn't daddy's a CEO, mommy's a doctor, or whatever else it may be coming through. Sir?
This is a quick question.
You can't ask anything stats, though. No stats questions.
The technology piece, I think of that commercial that's on TV where the grandparents walk out and they hand all their technology to the people and say, none of this works. Have you actually developed these and implemented them and had them maintained?
Yes, and that's what Roy and I, we meet on a weekly basis. The one that's ready to beta test, so we meet every single week with Roy and his graduate students. And this is the interesting part. This is where it becomes real for both the grad students and for us, because the first one, it was just a school project the first semester. Come up with your ideas in groups or whatever, and then I'm going to fund 2 of them, I tell them. And so I found the 2 that I thought were most promising, and now you're in a work environment. I'm hiring you, okay? Your boss, your direct supervisor is Roy from your computer program, and so they come in, and we give them feedback every single week because they walk through the application, they go this. And so I bring in my job coach and my teacher, one of my sped teachers and me, and we sit there. And we go, absolutely not. That will not work. In other words, because the first thing is fractions. So in other words, 1/4, 1/5. So I go, no, you got to go to color charts. You got to go to, in other words, and so every week they come back to the drawing board. And it's funny because they're so frustrated. They're techno geeks. So they're kind of, changing everything else and trying to make it as simple, whatever to them as simple as possible. I go, our kids would never be able to use it. Our staff may not even be able to use that at that level there. And so we just keep simplifying it. And okay, so can we have the option of audio prompts as well as, because if I don't get an audio prompt like by Siri telling me what to do, I may not, if I'm talking to somebody, I may ignore all those prompts that came up on my phone with just a beep or something. So it's got to go, exit the bus at the next station, 100 yards or whatever else. It's got to be just like your GPS, as simple as that. And that's why our first one is the beta before I give it to the doc students to do as a single case is one doc student, and I found, so I go, they'll pick us 2 students that will not be here next year, so they're not going to be in the study, one high functioning and one low functioning. And so the low functioning will use the mobility one because he gets lost everywhere. In other words, if you break him from the route or whatever else, anything deviation is, so bring him to places he's never been before and go, okay, you're going to go to, if you usually work at Firehouse Subs, you're going to go to a buy-low store instead. Program it in and see if he can follow it and see where the hiccups are, where's the friction, where is he not going to use it, and then for the high functioning is, one of the students is not coming back as a shopping application, and they go, what would make it easier? Because right now, all you're getting feedback to the tech people is from the instructor, the job coach, and me. Now I want to get feedback after 2 weeks of playing with it, what is the student who's actually using it going to say? And then in the fall, we'll implement it. I'll give it to the doc students as part of their research, and then they'll work with different students with low functioning or high functioning and implement it in the apartments or the classroom. Does that make sense? But it's that, trust me, it was one semester of meeting every single week with techno people and telling them that won't work, that won't work, that won't work.
Have you, on your graduates, have you done any follow-up in terms of any of them backsliding?
That's a great question. We went out, I did everybody, okay, for everybody who graduated. And now the issue is how far do I track? Because it's time costly. It's taken a doc student a long time to do this. The families don't know the doc student who's called them because they have no relationship with them. So now how far do I track? And the question isn't answered yet. Do I just track you for 3 years and stop you at 3 years? Or do I continue all the way back from my first cohort and track that? And I don't know the answer to that, sir.
What are you doing for tracking?
Tracking is we developed a whole interview, and we talk to the mom, the dad, and then we talk to the student themselves. And so everything for, are you in a relationship? Are you employed? How many hours are you doing? This is why mom is more important and dad than the student, because they may not know their wages that they're working or exactly number of hours. I don't know, I work a long time or whatever else. So, but the questions there, and that's why it's also time consuming. So do we only go back every 3 years and ask them again on a 3-year basis? Or do we just go 3 years out? Because would you go out to your teacher candidates after 15 years and see if they're still in the field? Or you just do the one survey once they leave? So I mean, again, and it's all time, man hours out of my budget and my thing. I could use them for something more valuable than to keep spending several weeks reaching out to parents, some of whom never call back or whatever.
But what's the literature say about follow-up? Who has done anything and what have they shown in any follow-ups after any kind of effort like this for young adults?
The programs are all relatively new. I was probably number 100 in the nation when I opened. Now there's 252. So most of them don't. Like if you went to the other South Carolina schools, I don't think anybody else even tracks their graduates. Because again, if you're running on a minimum staff, do you have anybody really do that? Most of them, it's not a research laboratory setting. It's basically one faculty member or whatever else opening with a minimum staff, and they're putting them into the regular.
How about even job coaching? Those programs, do they do follow-ups at all?
I would assume. I don't know. I'm not up on the research on that. Those are all good questions, though. But again, when it comes back to my program, is how much time am I willing to devote and how much manpower to do that, and that's why I still haven't answered that, because as we keep going longitudinally, it's going to be more and more man hours to follow that.
Well, my last question is a tag on this. Mm-hmm. What of all your data really is the selling point to the people who fund you?
I'm no longer getting funding. My funding was gone. My funding was only for 3 years, 155. So I'm completely self-supporting for the last 5 years.
So you're self-supported by family?
By program fees and by donations. Now I've got several other small scholarships, but they're for specific things like health fitness for that, but it's not actually to run the program.
Yeah, I work with students with intellectual disabilities, so I have this question.
Sure.
while I was looking at the curriculum on Monday and Wednesday, 9 a.m., there's applied math and applied literature. It's always challenging to teach literacy or it can be, it's always a functional math or literacy to student or kids. But what kind of curriculum or practices, evidence-based practices, or it really work well, or what do you do in this time?
And again, it varies on what the student population is, so they break it because we have some that are at kindergarten level, and then we have others that are at 5th grade level for reading. So the teachers break up, and again, direct instruction is incorporated because they're all from all my teachers are from, with one exception, I hired one from Chicago, but all traditionally through our undergraduate special education program now. So, but the curriculum may be related to the counseling, so they may be covering an issue in the counseling, and so the reading comes from the counselor. So it just depends on what day of the week, what week that you're coming in, and what aspect that they're addressing. But happy to have you talk to, Courtney, one of my lead teachers, happy to do that. Other questions or guys? Yes, sure.
Okay, so you mentioned you have a 2-year program, and sometimes you feel like people may still benefit and they may go for the 4-year program. What happens to the people who do the 2-year program? You don't feel like they're going to get any additional benefit?
And they graduate at that. So they'll graduate across, like Kelsey who walked, she was a 2-year graduate there. And again, because of issues, she would never truly be safe for independent living. We knew she was going to go home back to the family, the mother to live with. And so we tried out a transition plan for employment back there. We provide support to the family for 1 year afterwards there. So we provide guidance and support, but it is more challenging when she was from Mississippi. So the further away you are, the more challenging it is that we can provide support. But that was one of the goals, was to create like an alumni where either you come back, and we started having homecoming during the football, and we actually had Ben from my first class came back. It was kind of nice to see people, 8 years later or whatever, coming through there. But again, that's the level, and do we, now that they're leaving them in the thing, do we have where it's more official, where we charge a fee, but we provide you seminars and look after you? In other words, so on a monthly basis, we come to your apartment and make sure that it's neat and orderly, that you're still doing the maintenance of it, and that you're still, is there food there properly? Are things rotting? What are the danger spots that we see? But again, you always need some type of a support system. So even though they're independent living, they still need people to look after. Well, thank you so very much for coming today. I'm very grateful to have the opportunity. It's great to be back in Huskerland. I got to go pick up another red sweatshirt or something like that. Everything on is orange now.